There's no celebration.
Yeah, we could get some chairs for people.
Yeah.
Inviting.
Yeah, you guys.
We celebrate.
It's kind of a
Why
hostile
would we
environment.
celebrate? Simply do what you were told to do. Why would we do that? I'm going to clap when somebody's done.
Okay, don't take it.
I don't clap at people's spread.
We could have another lead come and sit.
Yeah, that would be cool. I don't. We actually have to find some ways to get way more dialogue going on.
Yes.
Because it seems.
I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
That's okay. I apologize for that.
all day.
I feel the same.
The first thing we want to say is that this project kind of lives in the same universe or the same world as the first project, but there's kind of two primary jumping off points or distinctions. One is that in the earlier version the city was the character, and here the objects or the retreat or the cottages are the characters, and we go from a kind of the section being the primary mode of expression to incorporating the plan as a kind of co-equal with the section. So we first started by looking at and analyzing the idea of character as a way of talking about both the letter forms and the monuments together in a kind of more abstract way that includes as a kind of umbrella over both. And so we looked at these being both these objects as characters, but also objects with character, which we kind of defined a little bit, made a distinction. So as a character, they kind of look like something. They look like an animal or a letter or something like that. It makes a kind of analogous association with the building. And then the idea of it being with character is that it's unfamiliar configurations of familiar elements. And so that's kind of like the collage as a strategy for design. So we created a set of pro tips to create characters that could describe the letter forms or could describe the monuments. So tripartite organizations, a base, middle, top, strategic symmetry and asymmetry, zoomorphism, simple shapes, and then posture, which we found pretty important for these, that they're not too upright and static, but they kind of lean in a kind of contrapposto way. Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
Here's your notes. We're passing them.
Oh, pass the notes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the way that we positioned the lake in our project is that the valleys of our flinterland get flooded, where the fire hydrants, which were very important to begin with, will cause a flood, and it can become an event that can happen cyclically. So the different characters can start as kind of a totem or a pile of parts, and then as the event happens and the flood happens, they become kind of barge-like and flotillas. And as they float, they start to have different relationships with each other. So we've photographed a couple of them here and thought about what those relationships were. Like, these are the lovers, these are the quarrelers, these repel, these are companions. So they have different, like, thinking of them as characters, they have different relationships and feelings towards each other. And so the way that we're thinking about the scaffold from the Friedman project is, instead of it being a scaffold, here we're thinking of the water as the scaffold, so it becomes the thing that allows the different characters to arrange themselves in different configurations or orientations. Yeah, so like in these different plans, we're thinking about how they can, so this is the march where they kind of line up, assume the formation where they become a grid. They're huddling around the fire hydrant. So the hydrant, which is the thing that kind of spawns the event, also becomes the thing that these characters collect around, almost like a magnet. So the structure of the graphic novel or the book is we're thinking about kind of like an old time house plan book where you can, or a catalog where you can kind of flip through the catalog and kind of pick out one of the houses that you like. But in this sense, you can pick out one of the characters that you like. And the reason that we wanted to do that is because we are thinking of them as they form unlikely collectives here, but we also think that they have their own identity and personalities. So we wanted to kind of separate them and individualize them with the kind of house plan. So they all have plans and sections, and then their kind of perspectives. And we plan on writing little narratives about kind of what it will be like to be in this retreat. And they also have names, like the Madame Mode Dome or the Bark Deco, that associate a style with kind of the characterization of what it looks like. So it becomes subjective in that sense. That was another one that I thought was really good. Well, there's the Negative Nancy and Dust Boot, Willie Western.
So the strategy, so there are a couple things that we took from the last review really to heart, which one was the idea that was the Romanesque basilica of the parts that don't really relate to one another but coexist in the same space, and then the other one was about the plan and section, which could start to be reversed. And so that became the working method here, where this is the character, but then we just took like a cut in two directions and then filled them up with plan parts and section parts in both directions to kind of muddy, or to kind of create kind of conflict and opportunity within different configurations. So we want to invite some individuals to talk about opportunities that they found within that.
The plan and section.
Yeah, so as you develop a 3D form and then you cut it in the two different directions, it provides all these opportunities. And we just went through and basically made a collage out of the section in a house scale. And you start to play with the shapes, and the middle level of this is an old Romanesque church with the archways and even the flying buttresses that fly through, and lofted space above. So as you start to compile these spaces, you see new opportunities within this space that has its own identity, and ultimately can be put together as it is. Yeah.
Okay, I have my point on that.
Tyler.
Oh. And so another opportunity we kind of came up with, since this is going to be a catalog, is to try to make it like a legit cover of the catalog. It's still a work in progress, but it's going to be Winterland's Friedman Lake Retreat guide. And it is seriously, we want to try to make it like a hybrid graphically between like a Victorian catalog and then a modern catalog with the shapes that we have, and have a code on it. And just so we pictured it, when you're actually flipping through the book that's going to be created and published, you get to a section where it's, what the heck is this? It's a catalog in the middle of the book. And you flip through, and then on the back cover at the very end, we'll kind of have the same thing. We'll have an image, again, a hybrid between like the Victorian style and the modern, so it's timeless. And it will have all the information on the back that you would typically have for a catalog. So it will look legitimately how we want to present it. And
Using the word legitimate.
Yeah, right.
Yes. It's a good word to have.
Legit.
Legit.
Yeah. So I think that would a legit style. No. Yeah.
Cool.
Sure. Well, this one is to give you an example, sort of the character to bring it back, or like English and French languages, they both use the same silhouettes for letters, but they mean, arrange them in a different way, they mean different things for different people. So mine was like Francois, taking in from Corbusier and the French sort of Gothic style, which can combine together to create the shape that can mean different things for us, depending how you look at it.
And if you just kind of take a glance at the bark deco, that shape itself has a dog. I don't know if you see that in there. You know,
It's a schnauzer.
but the point is, it's not supposed to be literal. You're supposed to kind of find an object within, and I think the title, in a sense, helps that. Very prompt bulldog Doberman. Yeah.
Or Francois the
We're trying to think of what cartoon that was. Not bold. One of the guys. Help us think.
The hyenas marching.
Yeah, the lion king hyena parade. You know how they're all really rigid and noses are up.
All right. Deter.
Any questions?
Modeling work. I mean, okay. Great project. Couple of things to get into that. Extremely, I mean, you've done this before. I see a strategy of inhabiting another book graphics and then using that to project, you know, the message, and you know, also to sustain the unexpected, true unexpected book, unexpected content, book, expected. So that's already something that comes up as you know, repeatable, working, and even as a trait. So that is sort of, I think, and what I think what is brilliant is that, I mean, of course, when I saw this and I heard how it was made, is something that what was fascinating is that you come from an icon to an object. While often it is that an object creates an icon, but they come together. And so in terms of, so you have three parts in your in the work. One is definitely this, the icon creation, together with the strategy or recommendation, so to speak, and then you let everyone just imagine whatever, so you get the conversing. The second is definitely the 3D application and you know, sort of violation of the icon. You know, extrusion and violation. And then, of course, this part of photographing, it's like a really strategy of exactly knowing how to do that, you know, plans, all that. Right. The part which I think is sort of fragile, but you know, kind of not that much, is of course the part of an arrangement, of you know, how to, whether do you need that story or that hill in order to now contain all of that. I mean, I understand when I, of course, see the collage over there and that one over there, I understand the kind of transfer between the two. And also these kind of arrangements, you know, happy or funny or archaic. I think it's a pass. Because once I look at this in this way, I just see this idea: if they were put next to each other, you know, they make a row house in a hinterlands.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, in a way that this diversity suddenly may not be just. I mean, they don't have to be next to each other. So there is this sort of, in fact, most of these houses, most likely in the catalogs, are slightly next to each other, but not that much.
Yeah.
So we would be actually even able to inhabit the Victorian urbanism with this strategy, rather than just placing these, in a like whatever random way. I mean, this already kind of starts to show that. The grade starts to show that in an interesting way. I was just, this really drew my attention because in a sense it is so strange even together. Because once they're together, those characteristics disappear. Which is, you know, for what was being sold or what was being marketed, in an arrangement, in fact, disappears. So you have a series of disappearances. Congratulations. So in a way, that is really like that process which really fascinates me. In the book or in this book, so I think this can be kind of like, I mean, this is all fine. This, I'm not so sure. I don't really get too much to the point of stacking them or kind of just like drawing them down. I think it's a little bit...
It's a hangover from the narrative, which
Right.
is now shown not to be needed.
Right.
So it needs to be abandoned.
Exactly. In terms of the sequence, what would be really interesting is to actually not have this at the very beginning, but to actually start with the catalog, right? And you have this kind of image, and then have a release portion at the very end, how this was done. And that actually then goes here, with, you know, like your explanation of your direction. So that anybody who is passing through can go back to the legend. How is it called? Index, exactly.
Well, the index.
Yeah, because the index was made first as a generator. And then basically then it's being shown last as a kind of, that stuff. And in fact,
It's in the typology of the catalog about that anyway.
Yeah.
And in fact, you can have each of these icons on each of the pages.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's full potential. So I would say that you know, like, and I would really think about an urban retreat is an urban phenomenon outside the city.
Yeah.
We've said it as kind of an urban form, or, so to say, or maybe even suburban, for that matter. And in fact, you know, deploy them like that, because then the familiarity stays.
Yeah.
But it's of course somewhere novel. Yeah. And because this really don't, it makes it weak.
Okay.
While everything else is strong.
Yeah. Yeah, we just liked the way it looked when we saw it, and we should include it, but I think the strength, the conceptual strength is.
Yeah, these are, can we understand, and in fact, I mean, all of this sectioning may not be necessary, because this can be in the water, or it can be next to it.
Okay.
You can go around the lake. You know, if you now plan also some kind of radii line. So, you know, like it could also form even a circle. So, you know, sorry.
No, I was going to urge you, if you're continuing to rip on the catalog and the idea of made to order, there were certain assumptions placed on the landscape to allow that to happen, right? So that those pieces that you would order from Sears or whatever that were houses had to be plugged in to certain infrastructures, had to be plugged into a site that was not certain things, but it was other things, right? And that I would allow those, that's where my problem with these sections come in, is that they're completely at odds with those expectations, right, and prevent that reading. I would hope that as you're placing it here, the reason I wanted to jump in is the perfect circle around the lake. I think that geometric purity makes a hell of a lot of sense, right? Because it's that kind of prescribed genericism that the landscape should be counted on to offer this way of habitation. And then the question is, if that prescribed genericism, you know, if that's what happens, right now the sides are absolutely flat, right? Yeah. And so assembled, you know, you get absolutely flat. Do they can't? It's a question. Right? Is if they canted, then arrayed, they would be your perfect circle, which would be not in section, right? But if they canted slightly, the perfect, putting them together, would describe a series of perfect lakes, right? each one of which is made to order, right? And off you go. And so each lake is, right, a series of generic lakes, right?
It's like Ricardo Friedman. Scared.
But it doesn't even have to just encompass each lake. It could be one circle that condenses the five of them.
It's a question. It's not a suggestion at this point. It's a question, right? Because right now the assumption is based on it being a line, which is another. That's fine because streets have always been lines. That's what you were ripping on, I think, right? Lawns, lines, grids. Fine. Grid is fine. Grid is great.
And it would be so subtle that you wouldn't even maybe notice the can't in the on itself. When it's aggregated, it yields larger effects when they're aggregated.
Right. Lakes and clouds don't exist in the lines. That was my right.
You know, I wonder if you can leverage the interior in another way, where it becomes an interiority for one or two of your categories. So that becomes a site now. So instead of thinking about this as the object that's situated in the lake, we're actually the object becomes the context in which the other thing is now found within it. So it's either the Friedman or the monument or something actually becomes part of the sections of the plans as a strategy. And so that's how you find that information and layer it into the project. In a way that's completely unexpected, because I think you're stressing. I really enjoyed the playfulness in the section and the plans, but I'm looking for its connection and I can't find it.
That could really discipline the sections too.
Yeah.
We have to maintain a certain outline, but then we also have to entertain.
It becomes really smart and strategic in how you're using your 5 categories.
Yeah, that could actually also go at the end.
Yeah.
Where you really say what is analogous to what. If this is analogous to, how monuments look like, and somebody drew them as a kid. Then that needs to be explained, so we know that which tradition goes into which element, and then which Friedman's essays goes into this thing, and which collector kind of is implied. So that would be really great to have, just like on one page.
My suggestion is a bad one. The one I made a moment ago.
About
The can't and the circle. It doesn't work, right?
why not?
I don't think it works. If you look at this assembly, if you look at your precedent, the goal in everything, and everything that came from it, is to ignore that which is to the side of you and celebrate that which is in front and behind you, right? You think of a row house, right? There's a firewall to each side. You think of a suburban house. Usually the side yards are really, really tiny, and you ignore them. You plan them out. You put whatever there, and you stare to the front where you have a green lawn, and the bigger it is, the better. And then you stare to the back, and you have woods or something, right? And it's your retreat. And so there's this bias where to the front and to the back, that's where you're casting your view and you're focusing. So a circle doesn't allow you to do that because it shows that someone else has that same domain. There's an insinuation that this land is my land, this land is your land. I'm going to break out into a song. I don't mean to, right? But this backyard is my backyard, and I'm going to plant trees. You could buy a fence with those.
To go after that, I mean,
You
maybe.
could really, I think this, you prescribe your own lake, and it's a perfect line, right? And like the lake for each one is just an extension of it. Like the lake is a part of it, right? It's just kind of filled in.
The ribbon
And the back is the green, right? So there isn't a lake that exists already. You can care less.
Just don't screw it up.
I mean, the analogy.
Do whatever you want.
No, don't do whatever you want, because I just showed you something that looked like a good idea is really, really bad. Like a perfect circle would be.
Okay, I have it. Okay, this is what Dutch would do.
Right.
And they did it. Right. West State did it.
Yeah.
Born Island. Right. You know the story. So So you can say you can have like a weird there and a Dutch formation.
Mm.
Right? They emulated Victorians anyway,
Yeah.
because they always absorbed. And but then you can also think of it fully of a Dutch, really copy. Is that, for example, why don't each leg gets only one?
One of these.
One of these. So you have a network, and you recognize it. When you see it, you recognize the other one. It's like Chumis police, but in a kind of way. And you allow only one to be there. Because these are actually a retreat. Each of them is a retreat. It's not the private house. It's kind of, that's the one somehow now that I would think could make a lot of sense. Not even here, but things like Michigan, but on any place.
So what are you back to this?
So we're just giving you a whole bunch of conflicting ideas.
Good luck.
That's why these are so great. There's so much.
I know, but you could make some decisions.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a good observation that it looks like they ignore everything on the side of them, but it's not the intent to have.
No, that's not the intent of yours. It's the
Right.
intent of the precedent. I'm not speaking to yours,
Yeah.
right? But if you're borrowing from Sears, Roebuck, Spec House, these things, that they were designed with that in mind.
I think the intent is also that they don't always have to, like sometimes they come together and are friends, and sometimes they
Yeah, so then
separate.
there are
and
two methods there.
They're like quarreling or
Yeah, of course,
isolated.
it's made to order, but there were, within the made to order paradigm, there were certain assumptions made. I guess that's my larger point. Maybe I should have stopped before I made suggestions, right? Is that within the made to order paradigm, within this paradigm, there were assumptions that X, Y, and Z would be provided, that these restrictions would be placed on the site, that these would be prescribed relationships with one's neighbors, these would not be. You've already done that, right? You've done certain, but you framed it in terms of characters in a drama, attitudes, emotions, right?
Right.
And I'm wondering if that's rooted in the right way, I guess is what I'm saying. Because
You can do both, yeah.
you can characterize it, exactly.
Yeah.
You still use the same words,
Right.
but those words are rooted on other things that are.
Right.
And that would be a point. This is very fanciful. I love how fanciful it is. But having a few moments of attachment or reattachment back to Flint, the conditions that happen actually on terra firma, not hurt you.
This would be a campus network.
Yeah. This is inbounds. This is inbounds. This is completely
I mean, this
inbounds.
could be
yes.
like on one single area, like say 100 feet, or even more. Yeah. But like make it.
Yeah.
Like make
Yeah,
it so
but
it
you did,
works.
yeah.
Like imagine we're like.
We actually
That's
hope
the
to get a
step.
further picture away to have them
That's
spread
cool.
out.
It's cool. No problem. I'm not. It's all good.
Yeah.
And also you can have it on that scale, but you can have it on the scale of the state.
Right.
Yeah. That's the hexagon switching station method. One switching station is not needed next to another. So they are basically cities apart.
This is right. So you notice how Surgeon has, and he ranged them using the same orientation, right, as what was done a moment ago. That's potentially pointing to one of these factors that I spoke of that was somehow lost, which of course is the sun, which generally does the same things all the time, right? This purposely ignores that and sets a very different, it roots itself on something else. All I'm asking you for is a great deal of intentionality in those decisions, which will be manifest. If I see them like this, I will know that you've rooted it on factors that are going to be predictive in this way. If I see it in the other direction, I know that there are other factors in play upon which you've rooted it. Okay, good.
Okay. Very good.
Cool.
Yes.
No, it's enough.
You guys are nuts.
I just always give them.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. Thank you.
I mean,
Okay.
You gave us
I
a
just
lot
want
of
to. I want to be able to see that relationship.
Yeah.
You're missing something.
But I love the fact that it's not in section anymore. I love the fact that actually what we're talking about, the plan, is actually the driver now. I think that's absolutely perfect for you.
Absolutely.
No. We just like to say that.